eruption and how much lava and ash are emitted.
Is there any way to predict what the duration of this eruption will be, and I guess more in practical terms, when planes might be flying again in Europe?
Well, it's not a certainty, but you can look at the past eruptions of this volcano, and that's a good guide to what they're probably going to do in the future. And the past few eruptions of this particular volcano have lasted months to a little more than a year, but they've really erupted only a very small amount of material, less than a cubic kilometer. And for comparison, the 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption was a cubic kilometer, so a tenth of that size. So I don't anticipate that this eruption will be much greater than those. However, the Icelandic volcanologists have this volcano well wired. They're monitoring it with a variety of geophysical instruments. And so if it were to intensify or grow much larger or give signs that it were going to intensify and grow much larger, they should see some signals of that.
One last question for you, just about your own experience. I know that you've flown in planes around active volcanoes to view ash and gas plumes from volcanoes when they're going off. I think we've got some footage here that you shot from the Okmok eruption in Alaska in 2008. How hard is it to monitor a volcano from the air when the ash from that volcano, as you're describing, is so damaging to aircraft?
Right. Well, you have to keep a safe distance, and really your aerial observations are giving you visual information about what's going on so you can interpret firsthand the process. But it's very important to have instruments on the ground that are detecting earthquakes, tracking the changing locations, depths, and sizes of earthquakes, instrumentation on the ground that's measuring the volcano changing shape and moving as magma is moving underground. And it's very important to use satellite technology to look down at these ash clouds from space to see how big they are and which way they're traveling. So you really need a variety of monitoring techniques in addition to aerial observations via aircraft from a safe distance.
Tina Neal, volcanologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. You have a really cool job, and it was really cool of you to join us tonight from Alaska at a real busy time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you remember when that Japanese whaling ship rammed into the anti-whaling activists? It's happened a couple of times in the past year that we have covered on this show. One of the really strange things about that very strange anyway footage is that the Japanese ship ramming into the activists is prominently labeled research. It's a reminder that that's how Japan has been getting around the international ban on hunting whales. Since 1986, it's been illegal to hunt whales internationally. But one of the exceptions in the international rules is that you can keep killing a certain number of whales if you're doing so as part of some legitimate scientific study of whales. Activists have long said that Japan isn't really doing whaling for research. They're whaling because they think whale is tasty. International brink of extinction claims be darned. Well, today the "you're not studying them, you're eating them" allegation got significantly stronger. You might recall a recent controversy about a sushi restaurant in Santa Monica, California, getting caught for selling whale meat, and that's illegal. The restaurant apologized and shut down. The owner and principal chef were actually charged with illegal sale of a marine mammal product. But now the activists who caught that restaurant selling whale have done a DNA analysis to find out where the illegal whale meat they were selling came from. The analysis is published in the latest issue of the scientific journal Biology Letters. And wouldn't you know, turns out that illegal whale meat came from a sei whale, S-E-I. Sei whales are killed in the North Pacific by Japan in their, quote, scientific research program that apparently scientifically researches illegal whale meat onto the black market to be sold for food. Here's how karma works. Pretending at being a fake researcher is begging the universe to send a real researcher to ruin your day. Or your illegal mammal hunt, or whatever. Being the Republican in charge of trying to stop Wall Street reform is not turning out to be fun.
How do you push back against this perception that you are doing the bidding of the large banks? You know, there was a report that you guys met with hedge fund managers in New York. Isn't a lot of people are viewing this particular line of argument, this bailout argument?
Well, you could talk to the community bankers in Kentucky who are.
I'm not asking about the community bankers.
But I'm telling you about the community bankers in Kentucky.
Testy. Senator Mitch McConnell has been a little testy since he was caught out a few days ago for meeting with hedge fund managers in New York, begging for campaign donations at the same time he was promising them he would kill Wall Street reform. The way he's trying to kill reform is also getting some unflattering attention. The bill effectively bans taxpayer bailouts for banks, but McConnell has been caught out now claiming just the opposite. I don't know if Senator McConnell particularly cares if he gets called out for lying, say, on this show, like we did here last night, but I bet he really does care when he gets called out for lying and raked over the coals for it by his hometown newspaper in Kentucky, the Lexington Herald-Leader. Quote, McConnell's statements are perfectly calibrated to inflame the public. Their resemblance to the truth is another matter. McConnell is trashing the other side's ideas with no respect for the truth. McConnell's calculus is pretty obvious. The high-stakes gamblers on Wall Street, luxuriating again in big bonuses, don't want any new oversight or regulation. McConnell, unabashedly courting Wall Street bankers for political money, is happy to scratch their backs if they'll scratch his. Ow. Ow. Ow, ow, ow. The interview on yesterday's show was Janet Napolitano, the Secretary of Homeland Security. It was a year ago that the extremism and radicalism branch of the intelligence part of her department put out their report on right-wing extremism. They did one on left-wing extremism, too, but no one much noticed that because conservatives were so outraged that Homeland Security would analyze the threat of right-wing extremist, white supremacist, and violent anti-government domestic terrorism that they ignored the left-wing report and demanded apologies for the right-wing one. They started even proudly calling themselves not just extremists, but even terrorists.
I want to say that I'm a proud right-wing terrorist.
Big applause. That man was speaking at an event with Republican California Congressman Wally Herger. Herger's response was, and I quote, "Amen, God bless you, there's a great American."
Amen, God bless you, there's a great American.
Liberty Counsel, which is affiliated with Jerry Falwell's Liberty University, also started marketing an I'm proud to be a right-wing extremist ID card that they encourage people to carry in their wallet. I'm proud to be a right-wing extremist. This I'm proud to be a right-wing extremist group is hosting an event at Liberty University tonight and tomorrow. It's called the Freedom Federation. A number of the speeches at that event have a revolution theme. Among the speakers is the faith healer who we introduced you to on Monday's show. I won't play sound of her again because we heard from a lot of people who found her too upsetting to hear. Another speaker is Lou Engle, who we have covered at some length on this show. Here's Mr. Engle waxing poetic about martyrdom at an event that was just last November.
Even under martyrdom, God, give me the grace. Fasting, 12 hours of prayer. There's a seeds of martyrdom. Days are coming when we're going to have to risk our lives to stand for truth in this society. Say, lift your voice and say, God, mark me now. Mark me as a man and a woman of the cross of Jesus Christ. Say, mark me.
So great is the need for Christian martyrdom on the specific issue of abortion, according to Pastor Engle, that he says it may be cause for a second American Civil War.
600,000 men died on the battlefields of America, and if God required it for slavery, what will it mean if God requires it for America, for the bloodshed of 50 million babies?
Yeah, can't we just please get some bloodshed in the abortion debate in this country, people? Can't we? So today, it is the Let's See Some Christian Blood guy, Lou Engle, being hosted at Jerry Falwell's school by the maker of the proud right-wing extremist ID cards. Their big headline speaker at this event is the Attorney General of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli, capping off a busy week for him, actually. His last event was speaking to a march on the state capitol in Richmond by people with guns. And before that, this past weekend, Mr. Cuccinelli appeared at this Tea Party event alongside this speaker.
At times, you're going to have to stand against the tide. I had to do that in 2007 when about 80% of the General Assembly voted for a statute that set up unelected taxing authorities. I stood up in the House of Delegates floor and I said, folks, our forefathers were shooting people like you.
Virginia Republican lawmaker Bob Marshall speaking at an event with that state's Attorney General. Americans have a long history of being bombastic and aggressive and over the top and hyperbolic even in our opposition to the other side in politics. We are not a country that's ever wanted or needed to put bumpers in the lanes to try to make our discourse polite or boring. We are excitable people. We get excited about politics. We use over-the-top language. And we can do all of that without threatening to shoot people. Without threatening violence against the Americans with whom we disagree, without threatening violence against the government, without threatening that Christians' blood must run in America's streets to stop abortion, without threatening that people on the other side of a debate in a state legislature now are the same as people we are glad who were shot in the Civil War, without threatening that our next peaceful march will actually be an armed insurgency. Elected officials and institutions that say those things and legitimize them and celebrate extremism as if it's something to be proud of have recent violent American history to grapple with. As you know, this upcoming Monday, we're airing a documentary about the worst instance of domestic terrorism in our country's history, the bombing of the federal office building in Oklahoma City 15 years ago by Timothy McVeigh. Here's a brief preview of that documentary. The images you'll see here of McVeigh are computer simulations. The voice is actually his, recorded in prison in tapes that have never before been broadcast. Here he explains why he chose the specific date of April 19th for the bombing.